It's going to come down to this. If you know that something is going on with somebody and you don't say anything, you're also letting it happen.
Hey everybody, it's Alicia Barlow, President Tell Somebody Inc., and I'm here doing another Tell Somebody episode. And I want to say thank you for coming on the show, because not that many men come forward when they're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I want to let you men know that you have strength and power in your words, and it's time to come forward and tell somebody. So tell our viewers about your story.
Well, as growing up, I consider myself a secondary victim. I don't know if that really is a thing or not, if there's a difference or not. But I experienced abuse from another victim of abuse. I was very young. I was 4 years old, and I had a babysitter who was 14 years old, and she would basically. We were, it started off it wasn't like an immediate thing, but I think, it kind of started off, we would be watching movies, and I think we had a bunch of movies that were, recorded on VCR or whatnot. And one of the movies was St. Elmo's Fire. It's old, it's not even really that, it's not a bad movie, it's like PG-13 or whatever, but there was a love scene in the film. And we would always kind of just throw in a random video and watch it. And I remember the first time we watched that scene, or we watched that movie, and it came up with this scene. You show people kissing and taking off their clothes and everything, and she was like, "Do you want to try that?" And being so young, I was like, "Okay." And she kind of took the lead, and that was my first memory of kissing with tongue and being naked against another body while that was happening. And at first it scared me, like the mouth kissing scared me, because it was just such a new sensation. It was like, ew, gross, but then kind of intriguing at the same time. And so after when she would, later times when she would babysit me, it kind of became like a regular thing. I didn't really, at that age, you don't really realize, whether it's good or bad. It's just just going along with it. But it was actually my aunt who noticed that my behavior was changing, and that I was getting weird about people touching me and showing me affection, even just family hugs and stuff. My behavior had shifted in terms of my comfort around that. And I don't remember this. This is how my mom tells it back to me. But that was when my aunt went to my mom and was like, he's acting a little different. And so then my mom then asked me directly, has anybody ever, touched you in a way or whatnot? And that was when I told her. And that's also when I realized that it was a big deal,
Based off her reaction?
Based off her reaction.
What was her reaction?
I mean, she was immediately, she's like, oh, I could tell that it affected her a lot, because she's, has always been extremely protective about, she works with children, and so she's, children are her life, and the innocence of children are, is her livelihood in cultivating that. And so for that to happen to her own child, I know affected her very deeply. Immediately, she got the police involved. I remember sitting out on this front porch here and being interviewed by a police officer, and them kind of probing and asking for more information. And then, as it turns out, what I found out later was that my babysitter had been getting abused by her dad. And so she was pretty much, exposed to that, and then, and then playing that out with somebody that she could kind of control, in a sense. I went to a child therapist, and they had, I would have sessions with them where I would just kind of be able to talk about it, you know. And I remember loving those sessions because, you know, I would go like every week or whatnot, and you know, was just being able to kind of be supported in my story, you know, was really, I think that helped me process it at that age in a better way. It's interesting because then as I got older and started to, you know, just, you know, you start to learn about these things, I was very cautious around being physical. I didn't go out and like, you know, try to get girls to do stuff that I wanted to do with them because, well, one, I was kind of used to, I was exposed to that coming to me, and so, you know, as I became an adult and then started having relationships and stuff, like I didn't get into long-term relationships until I would say later than most in college. It's like my last year in college was really my first, you know, long-term relationship. And how do I become comfortable in my sexuality, you know, without crossing any lines that were crossed with me, and just, you know, just being really careful around that type of stuff. And so I'm still kind of figuring out, you know, what the effects of that were, you know, through the relationships that I have. I think it's important for, as a man, for me to let any woman that wants to be intimate with me, that I have this in my past.
What are some of the reactions that you get from people in relationships that you let them know what happened to you?
It's usually like some form of compassion. You know, most recently, like, you know, I'll find out that, you know, they've gone through some sort of abuse.
Right.
And I think when that happens, what I find is really interesting is that I feel a certain safety with women who have also experienced something like that. The cornerstone of any good relationship is complete honesty. You know, I would never want to be in a relationship with somebody that I felt I couldn't tell them everything and anything. And because this is a part of my past, like that's almost like a test that I put out there. It's like, if, you know, if she can handle that information, knowing that, then I know to, you know, that to proceed would be safe for me. But if that makes her uncomfortable, or if it's like, or if I feel any sort of like, you know, like pity of like, oh, you poor thing, you know, that's not real empathy, you know, then I know that they'll never really understand what it's like to have been aware of this your entire life. Survivors like have every right to speak on their experience, and you know, anybody that's watching that's a survivor, you should know that people who experience trauma when they're young can you know, that can be used to hold them back, or it can be used to propel them forward on their path of truth. And society at large, the people who are sort of living in this myth of like everything's okay and like, oh, we don't talk about these sort of things because that makes us uncomfortable, those are the people that need the most help to understand that no, not everything is okay. Like this is happening on a level, on a frequency level that is more common than you would like to believe. That's just the truth of it. And if we are going to progress through that reality, it has to come through the truth, not through avoiding the truth. So yeah, it is uncomfortable, but the people who are survivors are really the ones who can help others understand how to deal with this uncomfortable truth. Because whether or not you've gone through something yourself or not, guaranteed you know somebody who has gone through something like that. And if you want to be a support to them, you have to get through your own discomforts talking about it. If we want to progress and evolve to a place where that ugliness is no longer a part of our world, we got to shine the light on it, and we got to expose it. And that's the only way that the perpetrators that are making this world an ugly place are going to stop what they're doing, because nobody wants to be exposed about this.
It's uncomfortable for people, but I don't mind bringing that out because it's uncomfortable for the little kid, like I said, that is right now being molested. And I want to say, even on your story, your aunt saw signs in you, and she told your mom. She told somebody. And if she wouldn't have seen the signs, or if she wouldn't have talked to your mom about it, it could have continued for years. So for anybody watching, when you see signs in children, you know, them acting out or them not wanting to be touched, you know, them wetting the bed a lot, them wanting to sleep with the lights on because they're scared of the dark, you have to ask those questions. So the other thing I wanted to say was, I know someone close to me who was abused, and he told me that he hears other people's stories of abuse, and because they went through way more than him, he says that he doesn't feel like he can, you know, he feels like his situation wasn't that bad because other people's are worse. And even how you said you experienced secondary molestation because the person who molested you was also abused. Whether it's secondary molestation or not, wrong is wrong. You know, and even if someone else's situation is worse than yours, that doesn't mean that your situation is not as bad, so you shouldn't have the same emotions that come with it. You know, being abused on all levels by anyone is bad. I found out that my grandfather, who abused me, that he was also maybe molested, but he for sure, a man exposed himself to him. But that doesn't make it right what he did to me, and that doesn't make my story any less important because it happened to him. So I want to let you know that too. You know, a lot of people are embarrassed or ashamed and feel alone, and that's why I like my movement, because it lets people know you're not alone. And not that many men come forward, so when the men do come forward and they feel like people are going to look at them, you know, with sympathy or look less of them, like, no, especially other survivors like me, we look at you as, you know, heroes. Like, you're brave for being the few to come out and step out. So we look at you the complete opposite. We look at you as strong men, you know, so you got to tell somebody.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing. I support it 100%.
So if you could tell other survivors, or especially men, just, you know, in general, anything, like, what could you tell? What would you want to tell them?
Well, I would say to any survivor, know that God looks out for all of us, in the sense of whatever humans do to you, there is always a higher force that is powerful enough to give you the power to set that, to make that, to balance that out. Trauma can either destroy you, or it can make you more powerful than you would have otherwise been, if you take that experience and you use it for good, because you have a right to talk about it.
You have to tell somebody and use your story to help others. That's how you get your power back.
For sure.
Who's ready to get their power back?
Let's get it.
I'm ready. I've been ready. I want you guys to get your power back. So thank you again, and tell somebody.
So if you have a kid and you find out, take them to therapy and be with them. It'll help.